I'm Ben, 35, and I guess you could say I'm the typical good husband. I've been married to Lisa, 32, for 8 years. We met back in college, fell in love fast, and got married just as quickly. Our friends always joked about how perfect we seemed, how we just fit together. I honestly thought so too. We had our ups and downs like anyone, but we always seemed to pull through. Or at least I thought we did. Looking back now, I can see where things started to change, though I brushed it off as life just being life. Lisa seemed different. She started spending more time out with friends I hadn't heard of before, and her phone was suddenly always on silent. She'd laugh at random texts, but when I'd ask, she'd just say it was boring stuff, or nothing important. I figured maybe she was stressed, or just needed some space. We all go through weird phases, right? Besides, Lisa's job had gotten pretty demanding lately. At least that's what she told me. But things kept getting weirder. She started caring more about her appearance, going to the gym at odd hours, and buying clothes I'd never seen her wear before. I'd tried to make a light-hearted joke about it, asking who she was trying to impress, but she'd always give me the same annoyed look and say I was overreacting. One night, everything just clicked. Lisa had mentioned she was going out with her coworker Amanda, someone I'd met only once at an office party. Lisa swore they'd be grabbing dinner, and then maybe hitting a late yoga class. I didn't think much of it until I realized she'd forgotten her water bottle at home, the one she always took for her workouts. So, I decided to be nice and drop it off at the yoga studio. I texted her a few times on my way over, just to let her know I was coming by, but I got no response. When I arrived at the studio, I felt a little silly, to be honest. I asked the front desk if she checked in, but they looked at me blankly and said there were no classes scheduled that late. My stomach dropped. I knew something was off, but I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. I drove around a bit, aimlessly, before finally heading home, hoping she'd show up soon with some kind of reasonable excuse. Lisa finally got home around midnight, way later than she'd said she would. She seemed surprised to see me awake and immediately got defensive, snapping, "Why are you up? You're always asleep by now." Her reaction caught me off guard. I told her I'd tried to bring her water to the studio, and her face went pale. After a moment of silence, she muttered something about yoga being cancelled and how they just hung out at Amanda's place instead. Something in her story didn't add up, and I could feel my patience slipping. I told her straight up that I didn't believe her. I mean, she'd lied to me about where she was, that much was obvious. Her eyes narrowed, and she immediately shifted to acting like I was the bad guy here. "Why are you being so controlling, Ben? I was with a friend, and now I have to come home and deal with your paranoia?" That struck a nerve. I wasn't the paranoid one here. I just wanted the truth. I calmly asked to see her phone, which, of course, set her off. She huffed and said I was being ridiculous, claiming that if I couldn't trust her, we didn't have a marriage to begin with. But when I didn't back down, she finally threw her phone at me in this over-the-top dramatic way, like I was some kind of monster for asking. I unlocked it, and went straight to her texts. And there it was, messages from a guy named Derek. I could see they'd been talking constantly, way more than she ever talked to me lately. And I couldn't miss the flirty, suggestive texts. Even worse, there were a few photos she'd sent him, dressed up in outfits I'd never even seen before. My heart was racing, and my mind went blank as I processed what I was seeing. She stood there, arms crossed, waiting for me to finish going through the evidence, as if daring me to say something. When I asked her who Derek was, she shrugged, saying he was just a friend, and that I was blowing things out of proportion. She tried to brush off the messages as harmless fun, claiming it meant nothing. But I knew what I'd seen, and I wasn't about to let her lie her way out of it. In that moment, everything felt surreal. I was standing there, phone in hand, my heart racing with a mix of disbelief and anger. I couldn't believe Lisa would even try to downplay what was happening. It felt like a punch to the gut. The person I trusted the most had been betraying me behind my back. My emotions were like a tidal wave crashing over me, dragging me under with every realization. I confronted her again, demanding to know how long this had been going on. Lisa's facade started to crack. She stammered out a half-hearted apology, saying she never meant for things to go this far, but her eyes didn't show any remorse. Instead, they were filled with annoyance, as if I were the one at fault for invading her privacy. I was overwhelmed with rage, but it quickly morphed into this deep sadness that felt unbearable. I had always imagined our life together, our future, but now it was all crumbling before me. I thought about our wedding, our shared dreams, even the mundane moments that made up our everyday life. All of it felt so hollow now, like I'd been living in a lie. I remember sitting down on the couch, the weight of it all making my shoulders feel heavy. I could barely even look at her. Lisa tried to coax me back to our normal routine, making lame excuses about how she just needed to feel alive again, like it was my fault for not being exciting enough. The dismissal hurt more than anything. I was filled with disbelief that she could take something so sacred and reduce it to some cheap thrill. I went from being furious to feeling so small and insignificant, wondering how someone I loved could treat me this way. After that night, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. Every moment I spent in the same house as Lisa was suffocating. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and every time I looked at her, I was reminded of the betrayal. The anger was still there, simmering under the surface, but it was quickly being replaced by a sadness I had never known. I found myself questioning everything, our life together, our future, even the memories I had cherished. Over the next few days, Lisa attempted to act as if nothing had happened. She'd smile at me over breakfast and talk about mundane things, but I couldn't join her in that. I felt like I was living with a stranger. I started to consider my options. I could stay and try to salvage whatever was left of our marriage, or I could walk away. Each choice seemed equally daunting. I remember sitting on our balcony one evening, staring at the city skyline. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink as the sun set, but all I could see was darkness. I realized I couldn't keep living this way, shackled to someone who didn't respect our vows. That night, I decided enough was enough. I needed to confront her one last time, and this time, I would stand my ground. When I brought it up, Lisa reacted predictably, defensive and dismissive. She claimed it was a one-time thing, and that I was overreacting again. But this time, I didn't let her manipulate me with her words. I told her that I could never trust her again, that the bond we had built was shattered beyond repair. It was painful, but I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I was finally taking control of my life. I couldn't stay in a relationship that felt more like a cage than a partnership. I knew I had to leave. After the decision to leave, the next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. I packed up my things while Lisa flitted around the house, still in denial about the reality of what was happening. She tried to convince me to stay, throwing out every excuse in the book, from "we can fix this" to "don't throw away our life together." But I couldn't be swayed. Each plea felt like another reminder of the person I thought I knew and the person I was now trying to escape. The final confrontation was intense. I told her I deserved more than what she had given me, more than lies and empty promises. I could see the anger flare in her eyes, but also a flicker of fear. In that moment, I realized she was losing control, just like I had lost mine when I found out about Derek. I felt no satisfaction in her anger. It was just the end of a chapter one had never imagined would turn out this way. Once I moved out, the reality of being alone hit me hard. I spent days questioning my choices, grappling with regret and what could have been. But slowly, I began to find peace in my decision. I started focusing on myself, rediscovering hobbies I had neglected, spending time with friends who truly cared for me, and even dating again when I felt ready. The world felt a little brighter, and I was reminded that I could build my life on my own terms. Reflecting on the experience, I learned that trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild. I realized the importance of communication in a relationship and how essential it is to be attuned to the changes within your partner. For anyone else who finds themselves in a similar situation, I urge you to trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Stand up for yourself and know that you deserve honesty and loyalty. It's never too late to reclaim your happiness. As I navigated the aftermath of my separation from Lisa, I began to see the experience as a harsh but necessary teacher. Each day was a lesson in self-worth, resilience, and the importance of surrounding myself with supportive people. I learned how vital it is to prioritize my own emotional health, and that it's okay to be selfish when it comes to my well-being. The hardest part was facing my own vulnerabilities. I realized that I had invested so much in my marriage that I had let my own identity become intertwined with it. Losing Lisa forced me to confront who I was outside of that relationship. I rediscovered passions that I had shelved away, like painting and hiking, and even picked up new ones like photography. I started documenting my journey, capturing moments of joy and rediscovery. Through all this, I also learned the significance of setting boundaries. It became clear to me that I needed to advocate for myself, especially when it came to relationships. I started developing a clearer sense of what I wanted and didn't want. I learned that asking questions and being open about my feelings was crucial, not just in romantic relationships but in friendships and family dynamics too. With time, I felt the weight of the betrayal lift, replaced by a newfound strength. I realized I could love deeply without losing myself in the process. As I ventured into new relationships, I approached them with caution but also an open heart, ready to embrace what the future held. I wanted to share this experience, not just for catharsis but to help others who might be going through something similar. It's easy to feel isolated in times of heartbreak, but you're not alone. Reach out, speak your truth, and take the steps you need to heal. You deserve to be loved authentically, and sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful new beginnings. As months passed, I found myself reflecting on everything I had been through. I had come a long way from the heartache of betrayal. My new life felt like a fresh canvas, and I was finally ready to paint it with vibrant colors instead of the dull shades of doubt and sorrow that had clouded my days with Lisa. I started dating again, but this time, I was more discerning. I took my time getting to know people, understanding what I truly wanted in a partner. I realized that I wanted someone who valued communication as much as I did, someone who could be vulnerable without hiding behind walls. It was refreshing to be open about my past, sharing my story while also listening to others. The connection I built with each person became richer and more genuine. I also invested more in my friendships. I reconnected with old pals I had lost touch with during my marriage, sharing stories over drinks and laughter. They were there to support me when I was down, and their encouragement helped me see the brighter side of life. We traveled together, explored new places, and made memories that reminded me how beautiful life could be beyond the shadows of betrayal. Eventually, I met someone new, Sarah. She was kind, funny, and had a way of making even the darkest days feel lighter. She didn't just accept my past, she understood its weight and was patient with me as I navigated my healing journey. With her, I felt safe to be vulnerable, and for the first time since Lisa, I felt like I could fully trust again. Reflecting on this entire experience, I came to appreciate how it shaped me. The betrayal had cracked me open, allowing me to discover the depths of my own strength and resilience. I learned that love doesn't have to hurt. It can be a source of joy, laughter, and comfort. To anyone reading this, remember, life can throw you some painful curveballs, but those moments often lead to the greatest transformations. Embrace the lessons, trust yourself, and don't be afraid to take the leap towards something new. You have the power to reclaim your happiness, and sometimes, the end of one chapter is just the beginning of an incredible new story.